Alright, hello. So I'm at the property and just give you a quick shot of it. I'm on the southwest corner of it right now. I'm going to flip the phone around, you can look at it. So it's a half acre. It's basically all the area that's not mowed. The reason why this hasn't really been developed is because we're right next to a creek, and even though it's never flooded up on this part of the property we just bought, it has flooded the property next to us a little bit. As far back as anybody can remember, though, it's never flooded up here. Nonetheless, it's considered to be in the floodplain, so you have to pay $1,000 a year for flood insurance. But if you own the property, which we pretty much do, we will by the next year. If you own the property, basically your rent is your taxes and your insurance, which would be pretty minuscule at this price. You got it for $13,000 after taxes. It's basically just a hay field. I am not going to mow it until next spring. One, because I don't have a mower, and two, I don't have a place to store my mower. We're going to put a garage right here, about 50 feet back, parallel with that house, and then the whole rest of this property will be for the house whenever I get around to building it, and my garden. So that's the north side. On the north side, I'm going to put some pecan trees, and then on this side of the garage I'm going to put some walnut trees. So that whole third of the property will be shaded on the north side. And then on the east side I'm going to put some evergreen spreaders and cedar, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side to kind of hide that ugly gravel pile and the city dirt. And then on this side of the walnut trees I'm going to put elderberry, and then my fruit trees, which will be apple and pear, possibly peach, and then blackberries and raspberries, and then the rest of this third is going to be my vegetable garden and sunchokes, which I just planted sunchokes in the back corner over there. Sunchokes they're like potatoes and sunflowers mixed. So the roots is what you eat. You can leave them in ground year round and pull them out whenever you want. They're hard to get rid of, so even if you dig them up, they'll usually come back every year. They spread by their roots. They grow about 7 to 8 feet tall and have yellow flowers. They're pretty. They make a nice screen, kind of like bamboo. And they're great for composting, which is one of the main reasons I got them. So that's what it looks like now, bare. And then my goal is to, in about 5 years, have it all landscaped and have that garage all finished, and then start building the house. Maybe, if everything goes well, I'll be able to plant the house. I'll be able to build the house in about 2.5 years, maybe 3 years. It kind of depends on how fast I pay off my debts and whether or not any more unexpected bills come up. So hopefully not. Now that I'm a single guy, and I don't really have any debts to speak of until my son's liver transplant, and then my car wreck, and now this divorce.
Salvation.
Oops.
This is exactly what is intended when, during the liturgy, this petition is offered up to God. Through the prayers of the Mother of God.
I got an audiobook going here. I'm always listening to audiobooks. Anyway, all the unexpected drama of this past year has kind of broken my bank. It set me back a couple of years, but I'll get that paid off and be right back in the saddle again. The goal is to kind of keep out of this is not kind of, it's to keep out of debt and let my value build and live off the interest in retirement. So that's basically where I'm headed right now. I'm 57. I hope to retire between 62 and 65, and because I don't see any point in working until I'm 72. I think that's a waste of retirement money. I've done the math and I've considered it quite a bit. I think 65 is probably the safest place to retire. So somewhere between 62 and 65. And then I hope to just basically live off of my property and my interest and my Social Security. And then whatever savings I've accumulated, I'll continue to invest, hopefully, and those investments hopefully will continue to accrue money for my children in a trust fund. I have 6 kids, so every time you try to divide a nest egg, the amount that gets passed down is weakened or diluted unless you're able to make a lot of money. So that's the goal, though. I want to be able to give my children what my ancestor gave me. It's not mine, it's what my ancestors gave me. So I pray for my ancestors and I thank God for these gifts, and I try to do my part to pass them on to my children and grandchildren as a family bank, basically, that you borrow money and pay back with interest to increase the family security. I encourage everybody to do that as much as they're able. Not everybody can. I know I couldn't up until now because raising a family is very expensive. And like in my mom's case, when the inheritance is passed down, you lose a lot to taxes. You lose a lot to taking care of the previous generation on their deathbeds and their funerals and all that. And then you take what's left and you try to build on that for the next generation for your own needs. So that's basically what's happening here. I kind of wish I could have done this with my wife, but we couldn't even communicate well enough for me to explain to her all this stuff. It was just so toxic and difficult to talk. But hopefully, sometimes a little distance will help that. It will definitely diffuse the tension level, that's for sure. And if the tension levels come down, I'm hoping that the communication lines open up. That's my hope. We'll see. Regardless, I'm still going to take care of my stepchildren as if they're my own, and my ex-wives. I still am going to do everything I can to provide for them, because I love them. Having differences of opinion and poor conflict management capabilities doesn't change my love and my sense of duty to provide and protect my family. So it's just not the Orthodox Christian way. It's not, our family's not how it ideally should be. But I'm not alone. It's a very common problem in today's society. So no excuses there. Just trying to work through it. Do the best I can. Something to really think about if you're my children or grandchildren or just anybody out there listening. You really need to think carefully about how your marriage relationship is set up and how you're going to work through problems where you have significant religious or value differences, and how you're going to negotiate that. Better to figure that stuff out before you make the commitment, to avoid these kind of painful things, because the children need examples to follow. And if your family history is full of divorce and multiple separations, what kind of example does that set for your children? My grandparents' generation did not have that. My parents divorced. That generation started seeing a lot more divorce. And now my generation, I've already been through 2 divorces and 1 annulment. And I'm done. 3 strikes, I'm out. And unfortunately, despite my efforts to set a good example, I failed. I failed miserably. This is not how I wanted to set an example for my children. I made mistakes. My spouse has made mistakes. It's never one-sided, or very rarely. Usually it takes two to tango. And unfortunately, the lack of those coping skills and communication skills were given as an example to our children. And we have yet to see whether or not they decide to commit to themselves not to let that happen again and learn those communication skills that they need to learn and develop those with their partners so that they don't have this repeat of the pattern, or if they imitate their parents and grandparents and go down the same path, which would be very, very sad and unfortunate, because it's extremely painful on every level. On every level, nobody wins these kind of fights. Nobody. You win custody, you may win child support, but in reality, you're not winning, even if you get that. You're suffering, the children are suffering, and it's not worth it. It's frankly not worth it. Much better off to try to work things out, but that's my opinion. The only time that's not the case is if there's violence, physical violence, cheating, and or it's just so toxic with chronic fighting and a lack of effort to work together that it's an unhealthy environment. Those, biblically, it's cheating is the only reason you should divorce. St. John Chrysostom reiterates that, but then clarifies that if you're married to an unbeliever, you should stay married to them, just like Jesus says, in hopes that they'll repent and become converted. But even if they don't, you should stay with them and pray for them and try to, serve them well. But in situations where your spouse is extremely resistant and antagonistic and contrary and contentious, and it creates a toxic atmosphere, and it inhibits your ability to be a healthy, practicing Orthodox Christian, and it's causing problems with your children. In those situations, you're better off going ahead and parting ways after you've made every effort possible to try to correct that, because that chronic toxic environment is very detrimental to the children as well as to each of the spouses. So, all right, well, that's my soapboxes today on that subject. But mainly I was talking about the property development. So pray for me, a sinner. God bless. Over and out. I'm looking forward to this. I'm pretty optimistic about how this may work out for the children and grandchildren, and hopefully my wife and I will be able to make up in a year or two. We'll see. If not, I'm still gonna love her. It's tough. She can't change that. So I just won't be able to have anything to do with her. So pray for me, a sinner. Hey, and that's another thing. Let me point that out too. And this was true with my parents as well. When you get a divorce and you have children together, you're basically giving up all the positive things about your marriage, and you're basically holding on to all the conflict. You still have to interact. You still have to negotiate. You don't have to do it as much. You don't have to live in the same house. You're separated, so there's a lot less tension. But you're still connected to them until the children are grown. And even after they're grown, you're still going to see each other at family events and that involve your children and grandchildren. So yeah, it's kind of it's a really inefficient and ineffective way of conducting your married life, in my opinion. But that's my opinion, so whatever. All right, well, pray for me, a sinner. God bless. Over.